Boom, we're live. Awesome. Thanks for joining me, Todd. This is Real
Oh,
Raw and Relevant. It's our first show. I'm so excited to have you on it with me.
oh,
Um,
I'm so honored. I'm number one. That's
yeah,
great.
numero uno, dude. Let me tell you, you got the hot spot. So, I've known Todd for, how long have I known you now, Todd? 5, 6 years?
Going on. It's going to be six, I think. I think it's going to be six. It's
Six
five or six.
years.
Six. I think it's going to be six.
I am, one of my core values is relationship, right? Long-term relationships with clients, with friends, with family. I was just with some friends I've known 40 years, and
Wow.
it's just that's part of who I am, and part of my business is the same way. I like to have long-term relationships with people, and I think you're the longest-term relationship so far, which is awesome. You're in the category of a few good men. I always tell people, I work with conscious entrepreneurs, so men or women. Mostly I work with women, but I love my guys. So I'm so on the show as my first person to talk to. And I want to tell people a little bit about you before we get into the conversation.
Mhm.
So Todd, I think you've been in your business 30 plus years.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
30 plus years, and very, very deeply experienced in relationship therapy, and specializing in marriage and sex, and couples, increasing intimacy. And also, I like to say, when we sabotage our relationships, or we do something, act out like infidelity, or other things that are outside of our promises that we've made to people, you're really the guy to go see, to work deeper, to learn to trust each other again, and actually have a conscious uncoupling, or a conscious coupling again.
Wow.
So, I know you've written a couple of books. Yeah, I mean, because sometimes as you've said to me, your clients decide, they work through stuff and they decide they actually don't want to be together, but they have kids or they have other things, concerns, and they want to make sure that they're not hurting people more deeply than we already are, right? In these kind of situations where we're disappointed in each other. And I know you've written a couple books, so I just want to say The Long Hot Marriage, and my favorite, Love, Sex, and Karaoke, 52 Ways to Ignite Your Love Life. So without saying more about you, unless there's something you wanted to add. Oh, you've been married. How long have you been married?
I've been married 33 years, and definitely try to walk my talk. It's being married is so challenging, and yet when you do the work, the rewards are phenomenal. And I would say we have a long, hot marriage. And as we were hiking yesterday at 1,500 feet and kissing along the way. I mean, it was really fun. There was nobody around, but
I'm always wondering, like, the secret to that, right? Like, how did I kind of get to certain numbers? I think my longest relationship was probably 8 or 9 years, right?
Yeah.
And long-term relationships, I'm so in awe.
Right.
Like, they just seem like nobody wants to do that work anymore, or stay together through the stuff that's really, really hard.
Right. But it's possible, and that's pretty much what I spend my time doing, 40 plus hours a week sometimes, just helping individuals and couples do that work, because it's our only way out, to have that abundance that we really can have, abundance of love and wealth and everything. It's an inside out job. And
how did you get involved? When you started, how did you choose to do? I mean, was there something in your childhood that prompted you to You want to do this kind of work specifically?
You know, I could tell you this, that since we're talking about how dysfunctional families hold you back. I mean, in my family, I was the model child. I was the perfect child. Made my mother proud. Did well in school. Decent athlete. Everything. Even Hebrew school. I mean, ridiculous. I mean, it was just, I did it all well.
Jewish friend.
So.
Were you the prince?
I was definitely the prince. The prince. And so, when things when I had some challenges, I couldn't handle it. It didn't go along with the perfect person. So I had a lot of anxiety because I didn't know how to feel okay about myself when it was, life keeps proving to you the truth. And the truth is I'm not perfect, right? And the truth is we do have flaws. So when you have, in dysfunctional families, there's a piece of you that's been left behind, and a part of me that could be human, that could goof off, that could be loved, even though I, rebel. That I didn't have that in my childhood. I started it much later, so I made up for it. So I got into therapy, and I discovered that
you're totally rebellious. You were like making your parents proud and following the rules. I guess.
Follow the rules. And I wasn't that perfect. I won't say I'm that, but I would say that I used to joke with my mom as I got healthier. I go, oh man, I did my childhood wrong. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, oh my God, I should have gave you such a tougher time, because that's what kids do, right? As I learned, I mean, I tell you what I did, and this was not a therapist's idea. This is my idea. When I got in my mid-20s, late 20s maybe, and I was married, and sometimes I wasn't the nicest person to my wife. I was immature. I reacted. And so I thought, why don't I talk to my mom and call her up and tell her what a jerky person I've been and how mean I was, because I want to know that she could love me even when I'm not so great. So I started doing that. I said, oh, Mom, you got to hear this. I have to tell you, I just had this fight with my wife, and listen to what I said. It was so bad, and she goes, oh, well, you shouldn't say that. But then she asked, well, why are you saying that? And I said, well, because I need to know that you love me even when I'm a jerk. I never was a jerk. So now I'm telling you, I really am a jerk. I wish I was a closet jerk. Sometimes I'm a jerk. And, lucky for me, my mom was open to growing herself. And so she would go, well, I loved you no matter what. I said, all right, but I don't know that. And then I would do that. I'd hang up. My wife, Sherry, would say, you know what, you forgot to tell her? You forgot to tell her that you did this, whatever that bad thing was. I said, oh, you're right. And I'd pick up the phone and I'd go, Mom, I forgot to tell you about this. But it's
got a list. Oh, it's funny. So tell me, I used to think that my family was like Leave It to Beaver, right?
Right.
For some of you old school people. My mother was perfect. My father was perfect. My brother was fabulous. There wasn't, I guess when I look in comparison to a lot of my friends who came from much more dramatically abusive or overtly abusive backgrounds, my parents loved me, and I never really, the things that I wanted, I seemed to be able to manipulate my dad to give to me and things like that. But how do you, I know we all, because we're little people with our brains not really developed and all these things are happening, we're little sponges. How do you first start to recognize that there might be some issues or that you actually come from a dysfunctional family?
It's a great question.
Are they all dysfunctional?
The way I define it is pretty simply. It's a dysfunction. Look, there's a range, right? You describe your family. I'll describe mine. Was also, there was no big traumas, abuse, neglect. There are some dysfunctional families that I see, people from dysfunctional families that, there's such big trauma and extreme, and I work with them. Sometimes I'll do my trauma approach, which is EMDR, which is a whole other conversation. But for most of us, dysfunctional family, we have to recognize that we're all in a state of evolution, and that dysfunction is, like in my case, dysfunction was, sorry about that, Somebody call. I'm trying to shut everything off, and it still got through. Dysfunction is when you can't be all of who you are. And I thought I had to be achieving all the time. I didn't handle my wife's anger. So what happens is as you go through life and life shows you where you're very reactive, and you could be reactive by fight or flight. So typically I would fight. Some people withdraw and flight. And when you start to notice that you're having a lot of fighting or flighting, that's when you want to look and go, what's going on? How are my buttons getting pushed? What do I believe about myself that makes it hard for me to handle these challenging situations like an adult? Because really, that's what happens, is that wounded child, that in my case, the little boy that had to be perfect, or maybe somebody else, the child who was abused, that cowers in the corner, and suddenly, something comes up. I had one man who he was a handsome man, he was doing great. His wife changes his something sexually, and suddenly he starts to freak out. He wasn't aware of it, but that led to him seeing me and recognizing that he was molested. So things happen, and we have steps, and then we have to start to pay attention and learn what might have gone on and how to free ourselves and recoup our true self. Our true self is the part that can be all of who we are.
Right. So the person who's, I think we were talking about it a little bit earlier, all parts of you. So, the other day I was in a workshop, a really fabulous legacy leader type workshop. And at the end of it, everyone was expressing, how they experienced the weekend. And I said, quietly focused. And it was like, they were all like, somebody beamed Ann up, because usually I'm excitable, and, I sometimes find it difficult to express the quieter, softer side of who I am, and right. Think that people are going to respond to that. Right. They respond. I kind of have created this personality that's more alive and like excited about things. And, I was looking at what drives me, right? And what drives me is this, when I look at all the things that have happened in my life, I look back and the driving for success, or the driving for whatever it is that you want. For me, it's all coming from, I'm not good enough.
Right.
I'm not good enough. What would happen if I didn't have that?
That belief that I'm not good enough? Well,
yeah, like what would happen?
Well, we become more successful, because the understandable that when we feel I'm not good enough, it does drive us sometimes, because we're so afraid of not being good enough. So we think we need that to push us. But really, as you and I were talking, for example, a little bit before we went on, and I was talking about, because I felt that. So what I do is I constantly challenge myself to feel good enough. So now I'm in the process of contacting people that have more fame and more success than I am, even in my own field. So I contacted John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and all those other books. And I actually tried 3 times. I said, I'm going to try 12 times before I give up. On the 3rd time, he responded. But I practiced imagining me as good as him, because I am. That's what we're free to believe what we want to believe. So I decided to believe he had a great title. That great title gave him some success, and I'm as successful as him in my own mind. And I could see it that way if I want. So he responded, his assistant responded, we set up an interview. I interviewed him, and my interview, I was prepared. I read his latest book, and I was ready. And so I think he appreciated that. So, I did my homework, but I also had a posture. Right before I was, wow, I'm interviewing John Gray. Oh my God, what did I get myself into? And then I went, right, that old program, like I'm inferior. And they go, wait a second. I went out, I was at USC, I was teaching that day, it was right after my class. I did 20 or 25 push-ups, and I said, I'm good. I'm here. He's my equal. I'm his equal. We're just two people talking. And I had that mindset. After that, I finished the recording, and I said, John, I want to tell you what I wish. I wish to share a stage with you and speak. He totally agreed. So now we're in the process trying to set that up. And so, but it's like, if I let that belief I'm not good enough run me, I wouldn't have asked him that. Who am I, right? Who am I? I am who I decide I am. So it's that practice, and we can break out and watch for those negative beliefs that run us. And those negative beliefs do hold us back, because we are amazing people, but our beliefs hold us back from really experiencing our full amazingness.
Yeah, your full. I have a friend who talks about your full awesomeness, right? So it's like,
yes.
What? So, are there any simple things that people can do? I mean, we're talking about here about contrary action, right? If
Yes.
you think
Yes.
someone is so much better than you. I know I had an experience with that, dating someone recently who was a professor and a PhD and written a bunch of books, and I started to feel a little insecure. Right. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm me, you know.
Yeah.
I have some books too, you know. But yeah, it was in that moment I had to catch myself, you know, because I was started to like kind of compare, diminish, whatever.
That's you're saying it already. The key is to pause and to notice what you're noticing. Go, whoa, look at that comes up, and you realize it is just a thought, you know. And so, you know, what would I guess what I do a lot with people is, you know, there's something called top-down regulation. That's when you try to think new thoughts. There are other things I do sometimes more on a deeper unconscious level too, when people are really stuck. But we could do a lot of this top-down on our own, meaning from a top of our brain to say, wow, my lower brains are telling me, scaring the crap out of me, or telling me I'm not good enough because of old wiring. But I can decide with my top of my brain, I'm okay. So what do I want to believe? Well, I want to believe I'm as equal as this professor in your case, or I'm as equal as John Gray in my case, and we are, because we decide we are. How would I then, if that's what I believe, what would I say? How would I act? What might I feel? And creating imagery of that, you know, to see ourselves as equal. So we really want to practice, you know, designing what we want to believe rather than defaulting to what we automatically oftentimes believe, which is, you know, we're inheriting the beliefs of our generations, our parents and our grandparents, and we could go beyond it. We have the power to decide what we want to believe and support that with how we speak, how we act, how we feel. And that's it. You started doing it when you notice it, and then you go, well, my posture was like one of closed. Let me stand up straight, open my chest. All of these things help. We start to rewire our brain through all these changes as we're more mindful and more conscious.
You know, I've heard this thing about, you know, the brain has these neuroconnectors. I'm not quite sure what they're called, but that you can unstick them and glue them in a different place.
Very true.
Kind of like rewiring the brain, right? So do you think that the simplest way to do that is what we're talking about, is to do a contrary action or allow yourself? I always say, you know, if you're not out on the edge, you're taking up too much room, because a lot of times these things feel risky.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You know, what we want to do is we want to go inward first and imagine how we feel, maybe even be grateful for having this abundant life, even before we feel like we do. We want to change how we feel. And then, like, if I felt that way, which I do, how would I act? Who would I call? What would I, you know, and then we do that action as opposed. So I think it's a combination of changing our inner energy and then doing action steps. You know, I could change my inner energy and stay in my room. Nothing's going to happen. And I could try to do action steps with that, with the same negative energy, and nothing will happen. So I sort of have to go inward, notice the negative beliefs, the paradigms that operate in our lives automatically, the beliefs, and then go, oh, I could do something different. And then, like you said, I'm going to do that contrary action, because that contrary action fits with the way I'm imagining myself right now. But of course, the other part of us doesn't just go away. So there's, there could be some anxiety, and that's fine, because we're not giving power to our fear. We're giving power to our faith and our trust and our hope in ourselves. And that is the way we ourselves can go through it. Like I say, sometimes we need somebody, a coach or a therapist, to help us get unstuck. And I'm a professor at USC, and I talk about neurobiology in my graduate classes, and they show there's proof that when we have good coaching or good therapy, and we act and feel differently, that different parts of our brain start to connect more with each other. The left and right hemispheres and the different levels of the brain all connect more. And basically what I've learned and what I teach is health is when we have more synapses. In other words, more connections. The synapse is the space between the neurons. The more there's connections, the healthier we are. The more they're kind of dissociated, the less there are. So, for example, a person who is coming from a tremendously dysfunctional family will be more dissociated. In other words, the part of me that could be angry I don't even have that. And of course, the extreme of that is someone who has dissociative identity disorder that literally only could be angry in one personality. But they actually split, they dissociate from each other because that's how they had to cope. So, I mean, but for most of us, we have different parts of it. And the more we can access these parts, there's a time when it's important to notice I'm angry and take care of myself and not be so nice. And there are times to be nice. And in business, there's times to be sensitive and caring. There's times to be firm. And if you're always being a caregiver, for example, in your family, a dysfunctional family, and then you continue that way, then you might attract and accept clients that treat you badly, and you get paid less. Versus, whoa, I'm valuable. I have to do things I never did in my dysfunctional family, which is make somebody else uncomfortable sometimes, because they need to be on their edge and invest in me and help and pay me because I'm valuable. So those are the kinds of things that I've done, and you and I have learned together. I mean, I've learned from you for sure about that. Yeah. And
it's really challenging. We're always talking about what are you worth and what should I charge, certainly with my clients. And I know when we started, I had pushed you out of your comfort zone around what you've been charging for so many years. And, we all have those little edges. And I think if I could repeat what I think I heard from you is, as we allow ourselves to be uncomfortable and taking some strides or some steps towards what we know we're actually worth, and we're going to feel uncomfortable in that process, but once you get there and actually receive that money that you're worth, pretty soon you're like, yeah, I'm just totally worth that. It stops having power over you, so to speak. It's almost like, wow. And I think, I have friends that have started to make tremendous amounts of what I consider tremendous amounts of money, $50,000, $60,000 a month. And it's another level of expansion in the brain. Like it never really, like you never arrive, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's never like, oh, well, yeah, that's no big deal.
What I'm learning too is.
So I think that's great.
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying, business becomes another area of your own spiritual, emotional growth. It's just an outreach. So it's not just about making more money, even though that's all great, but it's also you start to experience yourself differently, and your brain does rewire. You start to experience yourself as this person who's worthy. Look what I just did. I asked for this money. I take care of myself. I'm getting it. I'm starting to get it consistently. It changes how we experience ourselves. So it's not just about the money. The money becomes another vehicle of honoring our value, honoring other people's willingness to work and improve their own lives. And So it's all an amazing growth process for us.
Isn't it great? I consider it the biggest growth and development program that we could take on, except possibly raising children, which I know you've done.
Yes.
Raised a couple of great daughters.
Thank you. Yes.
So I know that we're
a lot of growth.
Yeah, I know the girls are doing really, really well, and yeah. I know we've had some behind the scene conversations. I know that we're going to be giving people that are watching, if there's anybody who has questions, feel free to put your questions below in the comment box, and Todd and I can get back to the questions. If you have any questions about how to break out of some of the dysfunctionalness that you might have, I think we've all developed to greater or lesser degree as children. That could be an impasse or something that's been a challenge in your business, in making money, in your love life. I always think there's only two things in the universe, love and money, and everything else is, food. But in my world, my biggest things that I look at, I take care of my health as well, but mostly it's all around love and money. And I know you're going to be giving a checklist for people to look at to even identify.
Yes.
Is it to identify how dysfunctional, or if it is dysfunctional? Is there a? I'm not sure what your.
It's a checklist of recognizing, what are the signs. Signs you came from a dysfunctional family. I have a YouTube video that 60, 70,000 people have looked at it, and a lot of the comments are, well, who doesn't come from a dysfunctional family? And there's some truth in that. But, what are the signs that basically you come from a family where you couldn't be fully expressive of who you are, which is probably most of us. That's true. Dysfunction is on a continuum.
Yeah.
But how to recognize it, and then how to begin getting out of it.
That's awesome. So you're actually giving people the opportunity to take some contrary action, or how to move yourself out of some of these places that you might not even be aware of.
Right. And
so awesome.
I'm doing programs for that. Do you want me to talk about that, or you would rather me just let the people know later? Well,
I think people can. If they want to get the break free, that's what we're calling it, break free from your dysfunctional family checklist, and then they'll be able to contact you from there. And
absolutely,
I wanted to really thank you for being on this conversation.
Sure. Love it. Love you.
Did you want to? Anything else you wanted to say before we sign out?
Well, I think the basic thing is that we are affected by our childhood. We have to be. We adapt. Our brains are amazingly adaptable. That it's built to survive. And in order to survive in our family, there are things that we believe, we learn to believe, and some of those things are good, but some of those things hold us back. But the good news is that we could decide to be more conscious and start to do things and say things and believe things and feel things that can allow us to have more health, more wealth, and more love.
Awesome. So I just wanted to thank you, and I'm signing off to Ann Bennett, Renegade Branding, and be unapologetically you, and take some tips from Todd, which would be really great. So if you want to do that, just leave any questions or anything for Todd in the comments below. Oh, in the comment below, put Rebel if you'd like to get the dysfunctional checklist and take a look at that, and can kind of see what you can do to start to move yourself forward and be more fully self-expressed. So thanks, Todd. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's off.